Welcome to my convention review series. I'll give it a better name someday. Today we're talking about Comixpo 2022. I hadn't heard of Comixpo until a few months before the event, and by a stroke of luck, Dragon Laska was able to purchase a table. We contacted the event runners asking if they had any spaces left, and they responded promptly with a link to purchase a table. I wasn't the DL rep that contacted Comixpo, but all correspondence was done via email. For a bit of background, Comixpo has been running bi-yearly since 2016. It focuses on retro-based pop culture and comics, so as you can imagine, there's a lot of collectors and collector items there. Vendors are allowed to sell almost anything, with strict rules against selling sports and music memorabilia, antiques, furniture, and white goods. The last three are self-explanatory, but I appreciate the focus on pop culture collectibles pushed by the policy against sports and music memorabilia. This gives the event a clear theme and hones in on its target market, which stops the event turning into something they don't want it to be. Comixpo ran on a Sunday from 9am until 4pm, with doors opening to the public at 10am. There are two styles of tickets for the event, general entry and VIP. VIP tickets are $50 and have to be purchased online ahead of the event. This gets attendees access to the event an hour early and a prize pack. I'm not sure what the prize packs had in them, but there were quite a number of attendees present before 10am, and the website currently displays the VIP tickets as sold out. General tickets can also be bought online ahead of the event and cost $5, but they were also available at the door. One really cool thing this event does is offers free entry to children under 12 and anyone in cosplay. This clearly works because there were a lot of cosplayers. I saw at least 2 distinct Mikus and a pair of Kagamine twins. I was living! This did give me a bit of whiplash because other single-day comics events I've exhibited at have offered prizes to cosplayers, but I've never seen those kinds of gimmicks go over as well as they did at Comixpo. There was a cosplay parade and competition that cost a gold coin to enter, which went directly to the event's charity, Muscular Dystrophy Australia. I'll talk more on that later. The competition was very well run, with specific categories, runner-up prizes, and special mentions. There was a great sense of community around cosplay, and it was really great to see. Stallholder allocations give the vendors 1 table and 2 chairs, but vendors can request more furniture. I'm mostly sure that additional tables were charged as stallholder allocations, but I can't confirm this. This was incredibly relevant as we entered and found some stall holders had up to 4 tables. These were basically the equivalent of licensed vendors at events like Supanova, retailers that sell licensed merchandise as opposed to original content. There was a good mix of licensed merch versus original creators, and the creators were mixed up together so there wasn't a clear split between vendors. One thing that I did find very strange was the lack of a released floor plan. There is a venue map on the Comixpo website, but no list of vendors. When we arrived, we were given a table number and a vague area it would be in. This meant I had to draw up my own floor plan while I was at the event, and while this probably isn't entirely accurate, it's the best I could do. Comixpo takes place at the Whitehorse Club and Convention Centre in Burwood, and I have to commend them on choosing a good venue. The room we were in was huge, and while it was a little cramped, it did fit all the vendors. It was supposed to be 28 degrees that day, and it did warm up inside once people started filing in, but I wouldn't have guessed it was scorching hot outside. There was a bar and canteen style food in the same room that was operational all day. We didn't eat at the venue, but they did put ice in my drink bottle and I do appreciate that. A lot of the bigger vendors bought additional furniture like shelves and tables to expand their displays, and while there was room for it, we did bump the table behind us a lot. Our table was on an end, and the vendor behind us had figures set up on a folding table. We had to be super careful when we stood to move, or we risked bumping their merchandise, which we did on a few occasions. There weren't any rules or regulations against extra furniture, at least not that I saw, but it did reduce the amount of space we had behind our table. Our location wasn't bad, we were directly across from the bar and got a decent amount of foot traffic. At times, people would take a break at the bar, leaning against it and generally taking up space. This luckily didn't create much of a bottleneck, but it definitely had the potential to. The general floor plan was packed in, but it weirdly worked. Customer flow was taken into account by setting up the tables in long rectangles, allowing attendees to move throughout aisles easily. It was pretty clear they'd maxed out the amount of tables they could fit in that room, but the aisles were still big enough for wheelchairs to move through comfortably. That said, the additional furniture bought by vendors and generally cramped space behind the tables would have made it impossible for someone in a wheelchair to vend. The space between tables wasn't enough for a chair to fit through, so furniture would have to be moved to accommodate. I don't believe there were any vendors with accessibility needs, but I thought it was important to note anyway. In my previous review, some commenters wanted me to focus more on COVID policies and regulations. I would love to do that here, but we weren't sent any policies and they certainly weren't enforced. We weren't asked to provide our vaccination status or wear a mask, and at least 90% of attendees weren't wearing masks either. I'm not sure if general attendees were asked to show their vax certificates, so if you attended Comixpo, please let me know in the comments. I've scoured their website and there's no mention of COVID policies anywhere, so I went to the White Horse Club's website to see what the deal is. Their website also doesn't have any relevant policies or rules, so ultimately, I'm not sure who the responsibility for this falls on. The event was busy from the get-go. We arrived a bit after 9 AM, but Bump-In had been open since 7:30. Emails from the event runners explained that we didn't have to be set up for the VIP ticket holders, and the Bump-In ran until doors opened at 10 AM. This did make setup awkward since we were working around attendees, but it went pretty smoothly otherwise. We had one table next to us, and right at 10 AM, an event staff member told us that that vendor wasn't showing up and that we could expand our display if we wanted. They kind of encouraged it, actually, so we scrambled at the last minute to cover most of the other table. We didn't have another tablecloth and the display was clearly thrown together, but it worked. That extra table gave us the chance to put out prints, which I'd taken on a whim. We didn't have backboards, and those against walls weren't allowed to put anything up, which is standard at venues like these, so it was nice to have the extra space, and it definitely paid off. I did sell a few prints, but I'll talk more on what sold later. As mentioned, the venue was pretty packed from the moment we arrived. We didn't expect the event to be so big. Other single-day festivals we've exhibited at have been much smaller and started slower. We made the table cost back in our first transaction, and while given that the cost was only $50, it was really nice to have a whole day of profit. Overall traffic was consistent throughout the day, and while we didn't make many overall sales, we still performed much better than we'd expected. When we did make sales, they were of multiple items, more often than not high-ticket items, that added up over the course of the day. We actually only sold one comic, and it was to someone who already had the first chapter and was after the second. We were recognised as Dragon Laska, which was very sweet and proved to us that our target market was present, despite the majority of vendors focusing on commercial comics. For the most part, we moved acrylic charms and pins, which was unexpected since usually our comics outsell everything at these kinds of events. My fandom prints gained a bit of attention and I was able to sell a few, which is rare at big pop culture events, so you can imagine how shocked I was to move some here. I wouldn't have sold any if we didn't get that second table either, so that's something I'm keeping in mind for next time. There weren't any rules against selling fan art, unlike other similar events, and we had a number of attendees interested in our Pokemon and Vocaloid merchandise. That checks out given the number of Mikus present. Throughout the day, MCs on stage reminded everyone of raffles they were holding and the prizes on offer. There were signed photos from multiple actors and voice actors, and a table of goodies I didn't manage to check out before the raffle was drawn. Tickets were on sale at the entry, and all proceeds went to Muscular Dystrophy Australia. Throughout the day, I saw quite a few people wearing shirts with the charity's logo. I've dug into the charity, and they have an extensive amount of information and resources on muscular dystrophy, and primarily focus on raising awareness of, sharing resources on, and raising money for treatments and research. I won't go into too much detail on this since it's not the point of this video, but I wanted to cover it since it's a major part of Comixpo. Speaking of MCs, however, one really strange thing happened not long after the event opened to the public. Gladys Liu, a Liberal Party politician and member for Chisholm, gave a short speech generally praising Comixpo for putting on such a great event in her electorate. She only spoke for a few minutes, and I'm not going into the full politics of this, but I thought it was worth noting. I didn't actually see her because we couldn't see the stage from where we were, and I'm not sure if she actually wanted the event or just gave her speech and left. And that's all I've got to say about Comixpo 2022. It was overall a good event and exceeded our expectations. We're pretty keen to go back and alter our display to better suit the attendee demographic, and next time I'll remember to take my zines. For a display we threw together on what little we took, we did incredibly well and learned a lot about how we can make our next small event display even better. To wrap up, I'd like to talk about some of the cursed driving I saw in Burwood. The first incident happened in the car park of a shopping centre. An El Grande was trying to back into a park and took up the whole aisle before deciding to just park forwards in the very open park right in front of it. As we left the centre, another El Grande, completely identical, left a petrol station and drove directly across 5 lanes of traffic to reach the furthest turning lane. We were at a set of lights, and they were green, but since this giant van stopped at least 3 lanes from moving at a time, we just had to sit there and suffer until this idiot got across the road. The next event was on the way home, when a sedan tried to turn into oncoming traffic before realising they had to continue across the 3 lanes of highway to get to the actual side of the road they wanted to be on. The final traffic event we saw was an elderly man walking down a tram line. Like, there was a footpath across the road, but he chose to walk on the tram line instead. He wasn't walking at pace or looking for a spot to cross either, he was just ambling downhill without a care in the world. Luckily, there weren't any trams around, but it goes without saying that you shouldn't walk on tram lines, or try to do driving maneuvers aside from going straight in an El Grande.